Coming up, the Hurricanes get a shutout and the Blues hold off the Avalanche. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL, local experts taking you from game to game throughout the National Hockey League. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you check out Locked On NHL on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. We are ready to recap all of the action for you from yesterday in the NHL. The Carolina Hurricanes shut out the Blackhawks in Chicago last night. Locked On Hurricanes and Blackhawks go over the first career clean sheet for Carolina's goalie.
Hey there, hockey fans. Jared Ellis here, host of Locked On Hurricanes. And tonight, the Hurricanes needed a win against Chicago to help bounce back from a really disappointing loss in Colorado over the weekend. And that is exactly what we got tonight. And the Hurricanes shut out the Chicago Blackhawks 3-0. This was Pyotr Kochekhov's first career NHL shutout. So big congratulations to him. You also had 2-point nights from Jordan Staal and Jordan Martinook, both with goals and an assist. Brent Burns having 2 assists, and Andrei Svechnikov continues his all-star level of play, netting the third and final goal for the Hurricanes in this game, now tying him with Tage Thompson of the Buffalo Sabres for third in the NHL in goals. So the Hurricanes, they got the win they needed. Hopefully they can continue this level of play heading into the next game. So make sure you follow Locked On Hurricanes on Twitter and Instagram at @LO_Hurricanes and on all streaming platforms, and subscribe to the show on YouTube to keep up to date. And let's go Canes.
The Chicago Blackhawks fall 3-0 to the Carolina Hurricanes as they've now lost 7 of their last 9 games. What's up, everyone? This is Jack Bushman from Locked On Blackhawks, just getting back from the United Center where the Hawks lost 3-0 to the Hurricanes tonight. And it was honestly just a game where the Hawks got outplayed by a better team. And it's not like Carolina was dominating them or anything. It was a pretty even matchup at 5-on-5. The Blackhawks just had troubles really sustaining any pressure in the offensive zone. The Hurricanes' strong forecheck gave them fits on the breakout. And offensively, they just weren't able to get anything going. They weren't able to get any bounces to go their way, hit the post a couple of times. And they've won games this season with lesser efforts. The Hurricanes just capitalized on their opportunities. The Blackhawks couldn't get anything to find the back of the net. They wind up getting shut out for the third time this season, falling 3-0 to Carolina. For more coverage on the Blackhawks' 3-0 loss to the Hurricanes, be sure to check out tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Islanders stumbled out of the gate in Ottawa, but recovered in time to beat the Senators in the third period. The hosts with Locked On Islanders and Senators go over New York's road win.
The New York Islanders did just enough to get past the Ottawa Senators 4-2. Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders here. Islanders downing the Senators, and they had to overcome some of their own mistakes. The Islanders taking far too many penalties, including a key double minor by Scott Mayfield that set up a 5-on-3, but with the exception of one power play goal, they killed it off and were able to hang on for a 4-2 win. Strong games by Matthew Barzal and Noah Dobson contribute to the offense. Brock Nelson adds an empty net goal. And the Islanders, they didn't panic. They didn't play particularly well, but they were efficient and they got the job done. Just enough offense and solid penalty killing overall to overcome the foolish penalties that made this a game. The Islanders continue their winning ways. For more, watch and listen to the Locked On Islanders podcast with me, Gil Martin, wherever you get your podcasts.
Tonight's game showed a theme that the Senators have had all season. You bring it close, you make it interesting, but you fail to bring it home. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators after a 4-2 loss on home ice to the New York Islanders in a game that was here to celebrate Daniel Alfredsson being inducted into hockey's Hall of Fame. But instead, the home fans go home sad because they saw their team put forth a putrid effort on the power play. 1 for 6, the one goal came on a 5-on-3 advantage, otherwise flat. 11 shots on goal, only the one that found the back of the net past Semi and Varlamov. Top line was excellent with Giroux extending his point streak to 9 games. Brady Tkachuk had a multi-point night. So did Tim Stützle, but the inexperience on the back end, and it really feels like this season is slipping away. We'll get into more of it on the postcast and on the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Coming up, the Kings unable to keep the Flames off the scoreboard. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL. Today's edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by BetOnline, the #1 spot for all of your online sports gambling needs. The NHL and NBA are back in action, and of course, football is heading towards the postseason. Whatever sport you like to bet on, you can do that at betonline.net. It's where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NHL. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. 2 goals in the third period for LA was too little too late in Calgary. Locked On Kings goes over everything for us post-game.
The Kings' 4-game winning streak comes to a halt in Calgary. Hi, I'm Eddie Garcia with the Locked On LA Kings podcast. The Kings allowed 4 first-period goals en route to a 6-5 loss in Calgary to the Flames to start a 4-game road trip. When you hear LA Kings goalie Jonathan Quick allowed 6 goals, it would be easy to assume he had a bad game, but that really wasn't the case. Quick was the victim of very poor defensive support. The goals he did allow were on grade A chances or odd man rushes due to poor defensive coverage or Kings mistakes. He ended up allowing 6 goals on 29 shots. For the Kings on offense, Arthur Kaliyev had a pair of goals in the first period, goals 5 and 6 for him. The first one came on the power play. Kevin Fiala scored in the second period, the third goal of the game for the Kings, his 6th of the season. It was also his 300th career point. Andrei Kopitar and Adrian Kempe scored third period goals to make it interesting. For Kopitar, his 3rd, for Kempe, his 7th with the extra attacker. But Jacob Markstrom made a clutch save on Kopitar in the dying seconds. The Flames hold on for the win. Kings fall to 10-7-1 with 21 points in 18 games as they head to Edmonton for a matchup with the Oilers on Wednesday, who they lost in the Stanley Cup playoffs a year ago. We'll have a full recap of the loss in Calgary on Tuesday's show. For more, check out Locked On LA Kings wherever you get your podcasts. Your team every day.
The Stanley Cup champions unable to take down the Blues at home, even with a 6-3 advantage in that final minute of play. Locked On Avalanche details what went wrong in Colorado.
All right, the Colorado Avalanche drop a heartbreaker to the St. Louis Blues 3-2. They threw about 700 shots on goal, only got 2 past Binnington, and in the bitter end, the ultra rare 6-on-3 power play that the Avalanche had and still could not get one past Binnington to at least tie the game. Frustrating game to no end in this one.
Yeah, it's a frustrating game. You're still seeing a team that hasn't hit the 20-game mark, learning from mistakes, because that was honestly what this was. Players getting in their head, overpassing, making wrong decisions, and just bad luck. And this is something the Avalanche can learn from early in the season, and you look to see how they build on this Thursday against Carolina.
Yeah, so the 4-game win streak comes to an end. You hate to see it happen this way, especially on home ice, especially with that 5-on-3/6-on-3 power play. But this is what happens sometimes. So you regroup, you hit the road, and you take on the Carolina Hurricanes once again.
That's all for today on Locked On Game to Game NHL. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. Make sure that you subscribe to Locked On NHL and, of course, your team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else to get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.